Sharpening is a very important step in the process of enlarging and getting your photos ready to print. Now, sharpening creates contrast around the pixel edges in your photo. So anywhere that there's a difference in value in your photo from light to dark, there's an edge, and that's where sharpening ends up getting applied. It does not take out of focus images and make them in focus, however. All it does is counteract some of the digital softness that can happen when you take your photos and apply adjustments on your computer. When you're working with sharpening, it's also very important that you zoom in nice and close to a crisp area in your image. This allows you to take a better look at what the sharpening is doing. When you apply it and you're zoomed out, like I am right now, you really won't be able to see the full effect of what it's doing. So on the left-hand side, I've selected my zoom tool, and I'm just going to click and drag over an area of my image that I want to take a closer look at. Now, on the right-hand side, in the sharpening pane, I have it off right now, which means that there's no sharpening happening. You'll see that this photo is just a little soft. I can still see all of the hairs on the cat's face, but I really want it to look a little bit crisper. When I turn the sharpening pane on, you'll automatically start to see a difference. Inside the sharpening pane, there are 3 different types that you can access: progressive, unsharp mask, and high pass. We're going to start with unsharp mask, as this is the most complicated and has the most options. There are 2 sliders, halo and amount. The amount is going to be the intensity of the sharpening that you'd like to apply. The halo is a great way to understand how sharpening works. This is the width of contrast that's being applied to the edges in your photo. So let's go ahead and take the amount slider up to about 100 so that we can take a better look at what halo is really doing. Now at 1, the width of that contrast is really low. The photo appears sharper, so when I turn the sharpening pane on and off, you can definitely see a difference. When I take the halo all the way up to 4, which is its maximum number, you start to see a strange crunchiness that happens around those edges. It appears a lot more fake, and there are some very strange posterization effects that are happening on the image. Unless this is the type of effect that you're going for, this is definitely an over-sharpened image, and it's very clear when this happens when people print out their photos. So you want to be very careful with the halo amount that you use when accessing unsharp mask. I like to keep it at 1 or 2 just to be safe. So let's drop that back down. Then we can adjust the amount depending on how much sharpening we really want. Try not to go overboard because, again, all you're doing is counteracting the blur that can sometimes happen when you're working with digital images. You also have 2 protect sliders underneath. This allows you to protect the highlights and the shadows in your image from over-sharpening. So if you're working with a photo that has a lot of white areas, you'll notice in the top right-hand corner in my navigator, this photo has a lot of white spots that I wouldn't want to have any sharpening around the edges of the pixels. So using that protect highlight slider is going to work great for this photo. If the opposite is true, if you have a photo that has lots of darks and lots of deep shadows, you can adjust that shadow protection slider as well. The other 2 types of sharpening are very similar, progressive and high pass. When I select these, you'll notice that there's no halo slider. This is just amount. And the type of sharpening that you prefer is a personal preference. I really love the progressive sharpening, but it's very intense. Even at the amount of 66, it's still way too much for this photo. So when using progressive, I like to drop this all the way down closer to 20 or 25. Just a subtle amount of crispness around those edges and I'm good to go. Once you're done inside the sharpening pane, you can go up to the File menu and print out your image, or you can save your photo from the bottom right-hand corner of your screen.